Welcome to the Remodeler Success Podcast, a show created to inspire kitchen and bath industry professionals to achieve optimal success in their remodeling business. Your host, Dennis Oz, is the author of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. He's also the founder of RTA Marketing, a pioneer digital marketing agency for the remodeling industry. On each episode, Dennis will sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they learned, and how to find success in remodeling.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Remodeling Success Podcast, where we highlight the real stories and real strategies behind successful remodeling and construction businesses. I'm so excited for this special episode because today I'm hosting an amazing person that has proven results and like many decades in the industry. I'm so excited to host them. And I believe it's 30 years, and he built a company that's been running really strong since 2006, and he earned awards and recognition as a top 500 remodeler, not once, but twice. That's the most important part. It's really interesting part. We'll talk about that as well. And hundreds of projects across kitchens and bathrooms and additions and full house transformations, you name it. And yes, we're going to be talking all about this today. Let me introduce you, Patrick McAneeny. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Dennis, and I appreciate you reaching out. Yeah, so
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Well, Patrick, just wanted to start a little bit of your background because when you look at your all this background, and I would say this industry resume, we see amazing things that has happened in the past in these decades. Let me ask you, what inspired you to start your company, Patco, Design and Build, back in 2006? And I'm sure that you have some moments that maybe some habits that really help you to kind of grow the company from the get-go. What was those? And just a little bit of your background, please.
yeah, I grew up in a house, mom, dad, they did some house flipping, things like that. So my uncles, the carpenters, they're all, engineering type minds, things like that. And, they would just always, the weekends we'd get put to work. I grew up in a house, a 1918 bungalow, Craftsman style, all the oak built-ins, things like that. And then, of course, as any teenager would, I wanted to get out of the house as fast as I could. So I joined the military. I did 4 years of the serving with the U.S. Army Rangers down at Fort Benning. Got out in 91, came back here. And, it's a funny story. I was going to be Patrick Patio and Garden because I was just always self-motivated, get up early, work late. I'm like a farmer that lives in the country, or little itty bitty city of New London, when I grew up. So I think I just always wanted to be my own boss. And, after I left the military, I started right now, just like anybody, I started cutting wood and mowing lawns and worked my way into, I met Ed Wyndham of Wyndham Custom Builders. He made me as a servant, you know, so he would make me roof and demo. And the funny thing is they would call me, the bull in the china closet. I really wasn't allowed in the house in those days, because just, I was really good I was super strong and I would break things. But I just had always been, severely motivated by, my legacy, leaving behind what I think is, amazing things that will last long after I'm gone, type of things. And that's how I got into, the designing for myself, the custom kitchens, the bathrooms, the additions. There's some 20 or 25 odd houses that I've built, because I designed them all, and I think I learned, early on doing some framing work and things like that for like Brown Builders, another company, some locally here. Uh, you get this, you start to see things, and you get tired of asking for permission. They're like, Rico, this doesn't work, so, oh, you got to do this. And then I'm like, finally, you just start making the decisions because you've been doing it, going on now 32 years, I think. 33. Yeah. It's a lot of 24 hours, that's for sure. But it's kind of the origins, I've always severely motivated, love to design, love to create and make people happy, 100% thrilled. That's what we're after. So I kind of let you know what that is about. Yeah.
Got it. Well, of course, there are different projects that you are specialized in. There should be even kitchens or bathrooms or maybe sunroom additions or could be so many different, maybe basement remodel. So when you look at the remodel work, the projects are really endless and there are a lot of different types of projects. What do you think is the most profitable? Let me ask you also this. What do you think is the most entertaining that you really like to just to work on?
Well, I think what it is, so like the process, I go out, someone calls me and I would say 80% referral, a little bit of job sign and then, a few of the associations. But someone will give me a call and I'll go out and I'll meet them and, uh, get an idea what they're looking for. Very seldom do I work for people that have blueprints already or have been with an architect because I go out, I take a look, do some measuring, just kind of interviewing them, see if they're worth my time. Cause I'll give anybody 12 hours. That's really my objective. And I'll move along and I'll create a concept design. I'll come back and see them. And in the industry I'm in now with design, it's typically a two-set close. So you come out, you interview, and I'll scurry off and then go create a concept drawing and a rough budget. And I'll come back and sit with them again. Of course, I got my laptop there with the renders and my design software, which I designed through SoftPlan, which is very easy to create a floor plan and get into the part itself, which is the renderings. And then, to answer your question, it's the built-ins and the customization of the projects, the glass, the barrier free, the tile with the niches and forget about it. So pretty, that's really where I get my bang. Everybody, it's almost like watching the amazing pool guy down in Florida. He always gives them something special. So do I. I don't like it. Even if I get paid for it or not, I'm like, it's going to be special, if that makes sense.
Of
And
course.
that's, uh, one goal, 100% through, you know,
Right.
that's the objective. Yeah.
Also, just want to talk about this one too. Well, you can't say yes to everyone, and there should be some, I would say, you have to filter some people. I'm sure that not a lot of people are a great fit for you. And sometimes you're not a good fit for that project too. You have to sometimes say no. I'm sure there is a qualification process. And I'm sure that
Yeah.
once you qualify yourself for the project, maybe then the next step is going to be qualifying the prospect. Maybe, there should be some different things maybe you're looking at. How do you make sure that these prospects are really good fit for your business?
Well, first you want to make sure they're not crazy. I wouldn't mind a little crazy, but crazy good, not crazy bad. So that's during the interview process. And, so for teaching a new guy to learn this stuff, that would be very tough because it's like, after a certain number of decades, I don't have to think about it anymore. Does that make sense? There's not like in my youth, I would remodel my success systems, pay for all these, trainings and sales and this and that and all the studying. And at this point, to mastery level, you don't even think about it anymore. But ideally, how do they live? What do they look for or looking for? Do they, can I make it work in the house, based off the property, the lines, the setbacks, the code? Cause I'm not an architect, but you know, uh, at the level that I've been designing for decades, actually, and do they have a problem that I can solve, right? Plus, it's the most important thing is do some preliminary price conditioning. You know, I understand something like this, the type of bathroom we're talking about with the built-ins and the barrier-free, complete relocating services that can run between 50 and 65,000. Is that something that you're thinking of? You know what I mean? For that type of remodel? Cause it trends more towards, not total luxury, but definitely getting closer to that than the other, so a typical project like that could run between six to $700 a square foot by the time you're done with the tiles, all the electricity, relocating everything, protecting their own access. We're bringing a different package to the table. Every floor is covered, surface, protected, and dust mitigation and those type of things. allocated, well planned. We use, we'll get to more on this later, but the process with that, but all that goes into it because, when you meet them, they get excited, they sign a contract, they're all elated, and then all of a sudden the remodel starts. And I tell them right up, I say, John, Mary, this is really going to suck. We're going to come in, we're going to destroy your house, but we got to break it before we can fix it, and, especially if we're doing like a master bedroom, we got to go, in through the front door, up the stairs, down the hallway, through their sleeping space, and then destroy a bathroom that's right there, or vice versa, the kitchen. I understand. And I think one of the most important things is, one, doing what you say, but definitely do not be shy to tell the folks that, how long the project's going to take. And you should allow yourself at least a 2 or 3 week grace period, because then you look like a superstar when you beat it, you know. And when things go wrong, you say, well, we're right on target. And I think for my area and my business and the way that we're organized, it's typically 4 to 6 weeks from agreement, I say from permit, because that gives us a lot of leeway for starting. And then, the 4 to 6 weeks or 16 weeks or 14 weeks. And I have to be on too, because we have a management charge on top of that. We run multiple projects, but I have $1,000 allocated for my production manager per job per week. So that, we typically run 2 to 4 jobs, if that makes sense. Because it's always something. 3 is ideal. We have the one that we're working on, one in the pipeline, and one closing. So ideally it's how we're geared to work, if that makes sense. And I tell people and a lot of back to the pre-qualification thing, when you're saying, the type of job. I saw a lady maybe a week ago. She's like, oh, I want one cabinet here and this and that. And I says, to be honest, I'm a terrible handyman, so, but I got a great person for her, and I gave her to her, because it what we're bringing to the table, it costs so much to get out of the gate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I answered that question.
Yeah, exactly. Lumega, thanks so much. Because the reason why I'm asking you that question is we receive a lot of questions from our listeners, and also along the way, we just see where the remodelers and also most of the construction company owners really struggle. And this is one of the point that they always say yes to every request. And just like Patrick described, we cannot say yes to everything. So Patrick, just like he said, he's not a good handyman. So if you're just looking at a handyman job, folks, you have to say no, because as much as you say no, you will get more yeses in the future. So thank you so much for dropping this golden nuggets, Patrick. That was really
Well,
important.
especially because you're focused on what's most likely to pay you properly, right? So, you'll waste a lot of time chasing the little things when you should be focused on a macro, or whatever, or a couple of minute rooms. I think and that's the most important part. Who should I be taking my time with?
Yeah, that's right.
With people who run you like crazy.
Right. Definitely, definitely. I also believe that you have to keep people like a little more motivated and pumped in the beginning. How do you really keep those? I would say not the motivation, but the confidence. You just have to keep this confidence along the project. How do you let them feel confident before the even project starts and also during the process?
So I think that where we differ than most is because I personally do the design and, the frame, and I can completely render it. So they know what they're getting. It's very exciting, the meetings. And, I'm just building a 1,700 square foot design studio and office on my property. Shop's almost done. So that really hurts because like every 5 days I got to write another $5,000 check. I'm like, I got to get done. But, so because of my capabilities, I go into the house on appointment number 2. I'm like, you got a TV, I got a 20-foot cable. I sit down, I says, this is what you asked me for, but this is kind of what I came up with, using their concept. And I think one of the main things is that at that appointment, I'll say, I'll be more than happy to continue. It's 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. whatever the design fee is, right? And then also, if they move forward with my design, then it becomes part of their deposit. So in other words, I'll do it for nothing, but I won't do it for nothing, if that makes sense. And the way we're scaled, I think you know, I got 10, 8 to 10 guys I directly work every day, and a plethora of major contractor subs, electricians, plumbers, and I stay dedicated to those teams, right? Every Friday, boom, you get your check, you get your check, you get your check. I'm not, if I had to say anything to all the rookies out there, or 5 to 10, don't borrow money. You don't need to, and make sure that the job is funding the project. Especially with like big bank jobs and houses. And you do that during the interview process. Where are you getting your money? How are you paying for it? And then when they say, well, why you look at, I'm doing a custom house that we've been designing for the last year and a half, probably going to go next fall. And we got 4,600 square feet. We got 10 months to do the job because of hammer logs. Right. And the gentleman says to me, he says, well, Pat, why do you need $200,000 deposit? I said, because it's your job to pay for it. My job is to build it and be focused on the outcome and the masterful application that we're going to bring to the table with our team of, phenomenal craftsmen. And that's your job, is to fund it. You got to make the design means, you got to pick everything out, and, we'll go to no end, but, they got to pay. That's it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it is. I believe that was helpful for our listeners, and also, folks, if you're watching this, I believe that you're finding this conversation helpful today. And yeah, shifting gears a little bit, I just wanted to ask you the tools that you use, Patrick, in your business. You use one for design. Do you use anything specific for, like, maybe scheduling or maybe
Yeah.
communication?
So the QuickBooks is accounting. I use for my general design software is SoftPlan, which I've been using since like the 80s, 97, I think, or 96. I can't, I've been there so long. I should get like a plaque or something. And then for my general construction management, we're using House Pro, right? It's a little clunky, but it's a lot less money. The $3,800 I spend on that a year, and basically it's one lump. I get the bill, I pay it, boom, it's going on. I don't have to think about it. It's not a reoccurring fee, but that has my change orders, my construction management. It has a Gantt chart scheduling that I use with my construction manager, Rick. Um, so he manages that. Even though I'm the designer and the salesman, I do this because I love to build, if that makes sense. So I'm on the finish team. We show up, I'll be here working on the shop, building the beautiful built-ins and things like that. And then we go out and we're responsible for, the hardest part of any job is closing and getting your final checks. And because that's when I'm there as the owner, I'm doing the built-ins, I'm doing the trims, I'm installing the cabinets, making sure, my crown moldings are tight. There's no caulk with the built-in beams, whatever it is, like, magnificent stuff. So that's the goal. And that's, so those three systems primarily. So QuickBooks, SoftPlan. Oh, and then I have one other system that I use for my built-ins. It's a cabinet software. It's called Mosaic. So when the soft plan, I could do it, but it doesn't give good, like window doors, drawer and door sizes, things like that. So that's specific software to the cabinet making and built-ins, if that makes sense. So those four um, are the systems that I use to manage. And House Pro does a wide variety of that. It allows me to make statements, internal communication with myself, my subcontractors, my construction manager, and clients. So it's a very handy system.
I believe it's also giving you ability to communicate between, just like you said, your PM and also your managers and you and the client. So as you can see, I believe that these programs are pretty much like talking to each other, especially when you just need them. Different software sets their different on strong parts, like let's say for the Windows and Mosaic and all the other stuff. Of course, you cannot utilize House Pro for accounting software, but I'm sure that
No, definitely not. We
it,
have QuickBooks and an accountancy comes in, and I try not to get involved. I focus, like Henry Ford. I focus on the parts I really, really get excited about, want to do, and that's the design and the finishing. And those are where you'll be judged. The concrete man misses his foot, and you're like, that can be fixed, right? You do that
Right.
on your finishes. You can't have crooked trims. You can't have trim joints coming apart. You can't have cabinets out of level. And a majority of our stock is terrible. 1800 house, 17s. And then really I got my prowess because I would got identified very young age of like I was probably 24, 25. I would get referrals because I specialize in old, and really winging it in them days. Now there's very little thought or what I haven't seen, if that makes sense.
We'll go to marketing right after this one, but I still would like to talk a little more about sales. In our industry, is always a long process. Our prospects doesn't really make decisions overnight. They have to, look at different things. Maybe they have to evaluate different contractors or companies. And of course, budgeting is another thing. When you're spending like thousands of dollars for a project, it's not something that you can do overnight. Of course, you have to plan, you have to talk to the experts. My question here is just one for prospecting, one for actual processing, another one is closing it. During this time that you have to keep your pipeline good and healthy, let's put it in this way.
Yeah.
But do you have anything, if you dive a little bit deep about this, how
Yeah.
do you keep your team busy while people are taking so much time to decide?
All right. So I have the benefit of being in this industry in the same area for decades, right? And we're talking thousands and thousands of completed projects, and a good 80% of my business right now is 100% referral, right? Someone I built, somebody and we only do about 2.6, 2.7 million, I think will be this year's number. And there's virtually no overhead for that. But the marketing standpoint, it's very important that everybody related to the company is wearing the Patco shirt, that the trucks are all 100% Leonard, that a job sign right at signing goes on the job site, that the site is kept clean, neat, organized, that so if I had to be number one, it's signage for the job signs, signage for the trucks, signage for the t-shirts. And of course I'm breaking the rule right here, right now, but my back goes your with the um and then so that's number one. And then maintain a good website with a lot of, job pictures, right? And that's a constant battle. I've been working on that website and I got my kid, I'm trying to bring him into the business for longer than I care to admit, but he's making progress. So I got him back here working on, the things that I really don't have time to focus on, which is like making little before and after things. So the website, the job signs, those type of things. In today's world, then I'm constantly posting on Facebook and then yeah, Facebook, LinkedIn, communicate with a lot of interior designers, especially if you do niche and custom work. Those people will be very good referral based people for you. But don't go there if you're not ready for, because they tell a story, you got to understand the story. And by all means, keep your damn mouth shut while they're talking because you're there to assist and build. They didn't ask for your opinion. And if they do directly, you could give them one. But you got to know, just like selling, you got to know when to shut up and listen, right? Because that will make them very upset. You know what I mean? When they're there, it's their show. You're there to serve, you know. And I think that's very important to know your role, especially when you're selling with a customer, right? You know, shut up, let them finish their question. You may answer the wrong thing and send yourself right out the door, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, so you don't really, other than, you brand building, mark everything, understand your territory, keep a clean job site and market trucks, and then do whatever social media or what's working best in your area, which you can get from like, the remodeling success systems and other watching shows like yours, they will be, very well educated in relation to that. Because every area is a little different, It's
Thank,
gonna be
thank
way
you.
different in rural Maine than it is in LA, you
Yeah,
know?
right,
And
right, right.
one thing, there's a lot of remodelers and builders and, who's who and who's what and who's doing great and who's not, you know? Yeah. I
Well,
don't find myself lacking.
the goal here is to create something that all other, I would say, industry peers can tune in, listen, learn, especially when they're maybe traveling from point A to B, or maybe they're just taking their time, maybe doing workouts. You never
Right.
know when the really inspiration is going to hit you when you start learning. You're just like a dry sponge. That's why it's very important to host people like you to bring these people the quality information, just like you shared today. Well, just to wrap up, well, thank you so much. That was an amazing interview. I'm sure our listeners are also making the most out of it, learning a lot of different things from this show. Just want to have my last question. When you look back, I would like to talk about the one lesson that you wish you had learned earlier in your modeling career, something you think that every remodeler should know. What is that?
Well, number one, I think that be patient, don't borrow money. And you know what? When you think they're crazy, they probably are. And some of the best jobs you could ever build are the ones you don't get. You know what I mean? Because they can absolutely destroy you, right? So I think that if during the interview process, you don't need them all, just the good jobs, right? And you will make much more money. I sleep like a rock every night, right? I just don't get stressed other than the pressure I put on myself for, since I'm a Catholic and I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. So that's constantly striving. And I think one of the our sayings around here is perfect okay, and we're always striving for that. And really, like so many other builders say, if you're gonna miss small. And the most important thing, once again, those two lessons is run from crazy as soon as you can, and you know, just be honest. It don't matter what the story is, never tell a lie. If you don't lie, you don't have to remember what you said because you can look it up because they know when you're lying. Most people do. You gotta be, even if it's the worst possible absolute news. They say it all the time. Bad news early is better than bad news late. You just give them the truth, but make sure you come armed with a solution. So that's three important. And I could go on probably, but don't lie. Um, Make sure that don't borrow money. And be patient, and it will really, and focus on a good job because that will pay. And you know what? You can't worry about every nickel because you'll never sleep. It's just not worth it. There's too much stress. Just do a good job, put your budget together, put your margin on there. Don't be scared. If they say yes the first time, you blew it. You want to make sure that everybody's happy, but nobody's happy, during the negotiation. You know, I don't know. I guess that's about it. Yeah. So
Well,
that's like 4 lessons. Okay. That's 4.
point. It's even more than one. That's great. I know every decade is its own lesson. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should have read the question.
No, I'm sure that every decade has its own like learnings, and you're just
Yeah.
you know, step by step. Thank you so much for sharing this one. Well,
No, it was
before we
awesome. I really appreciate it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you if someone has a follow-up question or even someone really interested in learning more. Can they go to your website to contact you? What's the best way to reach out? And
Yeah. If they
before
wanted
we
to reach out, they could send me an email to,
sure,
from the website. I
sure.
use my name so I don't have to remember. And then, yeah, or, Pat.McAneeny at Gmail. You can catch that from, PacoDesignBuild.com. Or, yeah, by all means, especially, now, even if you're local, I think if all the boats rise together, everybody's better off for it. There's plenty to go around, and there's enough for everybody to do a good job. So, try to, pay your guys and be nice to your opponent because you never know when you're going to need to be help from them. Uh, yeah, I guess that's it. That's what I got, Mr. Hodge.
Thank you so much. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. And Patrick, thank you so much for bringing this massive information and your experience to the show today. Well, folks, today we just learned more about Patco design and build. And thank you so much for joining us today. Patrick, thank you so much again for being here with us and sharing your information. We're going to see you next time. Forget.
Yeah. Well, whenever you need. Thank you.
If you would like to generate more leads, please visit rtamarketing.com to get a copy of the book, Remodel Your Digital Marketing, an integrated online marketing guide for kitchen and bath remodelers. This has been another episode of the Remodeler Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.